Welcome to the show, everyone. I have Corey Arnold. You can find her on Twitter at MoneyMindCorey, and she has a very interesting story to share with so many experiences that are going to bring you value. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on, Corey. I appreciate your time and your willingness to chat with me.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So the first question I have to ask is, what are some of the limiting beliefs that you had, and what did you do to really overcome those?
Yeah, that's a great question. There was one limiting belief I had, probably the strongest one I had, and I didn't even realize I had it. That's the funny thing. Sometimes you don't even know that your mind is limiting you because it's been buried so deep. But I grew up relatively poor, so my parents they barely made their income was barely above the poverty threshold. And for some reason, as a kid, I was completely aware of this. Like I knew we had a lot less than everyone else. Um, and this belief kind of stuck with me through college. I think I treated people differently because I felt like this was my identity. Like being broke was my identity, I think it impacted relationships in college. It kind of impacted maybe my entire experience, to be honest. And then in my late 20s, I started actually making good money at my job. I, I was doing well. I was performing well at my job. And then by my mid 30s, I was even making a little more money. I was actually making a ton of progress on my debt. And it's funny, so into my 30s, I never actually thought about being poor or being broke anymore. I kind of thought I was past that. And then one day I went shopping with a friend, and at the time I was almost out of debt. So I had made, I was maybe 3 or 4 years into my debt payoff journey. And I had picked up a few items to buy. And then at the cash register, it just hit me like, I do not need these items. I'm trying to pay off my debt. So I went to take them back, and my friend just jokingly said, "Oh, you're so poor," and then it just hit me like I got really emotional, and I didn't even realize that this belief was somewhere buried in my mind. So it's funny, like it wasn't the greatest experience when it happened, but now like I look back and I've even talked to my friend about this. Like it actually was. I was so happy that she said that, even though she was trying to make a joke. It made me realize that, oh my gosh, I have all this kind of baggage, these old beliefs still stuck in my head. So for me, that was the that experience allowed me to realize that it was stuck there. And I think the recognition of the limiting belief is the biggest thing that you can do. So now, now that I know it, or now that I know that it was there, I was able to get past it. I know that right now I'm so fortunate. I make a decent salary. I don't feel poor anymore. I feel grateful, to be honest, for everything in my life. So I think that was my limiting belief that it took me a while to get past, even though I didn't know it was still holding me back.
It's hard sometimes to even realize what beliefs are holding you back, and that experience in the moment, I definitely would have been upset too, but and you wouldn't go back and try to reverse it, because these, even when they're hard lessons and they're challenging with your emotional aspect of everything, they're lessons that bring you forward and bring you progress. And comparing yourself to others, like now that you say that your friend, she had much more money than you at the time, it's hard when you compare yourself to others, because we all have different journeys and you can learn from others. There's always information to be shared and transmitted through intelligent people, but when you really just compare, it is not something that is beneficial at all. And like, buying to impress others is something that I've had issues with in my life, where I'm about to buy something, or I'm thinking about buying something, and then I take a step back, like you said, and do I really need these items in my current life situation? Maybe my friend is farther ahead of me and he can afford these items, but do I really need these items? it's crazy how our egos kind of take over a lot of times in life. We just have to figure out, is this something that is actually serving me towards the goal that I'm going towards, or is it just a big brain decision where I'm trying to act or look alike and really try to fit in? I really struggled with trying to fit in a lot of my life, where now I come to the realization it's much better to be yourself, and once you have that clarity of who you are, everything gets a bit easier and more enjoyable.
Yes, I completely agree. And you're very right. Basically, the comparing to others is just not the right thing to do. We are all on a different timeline and a different track. I I mean, in my career, for example, others have grown faster than me, and others have grown slower than me, and it's doesn't make them better or worse than me in both cases. It's more, I have a certain path, they have a certain path. So I totally agree. You should only compare yourself to yourself, create goals for yourself, and work on those goals. So yeah, agreed.
And I'm not saying that we shouldn't look up to people and take amazing concepts, principles, routines, habits from others, but just it really is the thief of joy. I bet you've heard that saying before. It never does us any good when we look at others. It almost brings the feeling of envy, and like jealousy is just not a good feeling. It makes us feel inferior. And the purpose of living and trying to be your best self or improve upon your previous self, it's not so things just happen overnight, but so you can really appreciate how far you've come. And it's just super important to understand that we're all on our own path, like you said, and you can't really look at someone else and wish that you had their environment or were raised in a richer family, because some things are just completely out of our control. And the best way to go about those situations is, okay, how can I make the best of this, rather than wishing or just having negative aspects that you're kind of, like I said, being jealous, and it doesn't make you feel good when you're jealous. But I think we covered that pretty well, and I just brought up habits and routines. So what are some of those routines and habits that you really have seen improve your life and help you with your mindset, your physical life, your money, everything?
hmm Yeah, a few years ago, I think it was about 3 years ago, I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that book really, I had already had the mindset change with my money about 10 years ago. But then about 3 years ago, that book solidified how important and how powerful our minds are. And at that point, Napoleon Hill, he mentioned having time for solitude, and I had never really appreciated the power of just taking some time for yourself. So about 3 years ago, I started every morning. I would wake up a little earlier, and then I started practicing gratitude. For example, so every day I write at least three things down that I'm thankful for, and I really try. I'm not perfect at this, but I really try to um, write down unique items from the prior day, which sometimes is hard because we get into routines and similar things happen to us. But when you're trying to come up with unique items, it makes you think a little deeper about what happened in the prior day. And the whole fact, the practice of gratitude really, I think it's powerful because you're replaying these positive things that happened to you. Even if you had some negativity the prior day, at least you're emphasizing what good you got out of the day. I think too many of us just take for granted this life and each day, and we don't stop and kind of appreciate that we're actually here. And um, there's just so much for us in this world. The other thing I do is I meditate each morning. I actually have to meditate to a guided app. I tried to do it on my own, and I don't know. I just don't have the I get distracted too easily. So having an app, actually a person guide me through it each morning. I spend about 10 to 15 minutes meditating. And I think this really just, the breathing really relieves some stress and just gives me a good start to the day. I have quite a list here. I also say affirmations. So, we only have so many thoughts per day. And I think the more thoughts that we can actually control versus allowing them to be automated, I think that just gives us more control, of course, over that time and then into the day as well. I do actually write a blog, so I post it 3 times a week. So that keeps me pretty busy, and it really lets me, I think, writing things down and writing out your feelings, even though some of my blogs aren't really about feelings, but just writing it out and expressing myself in different ways is really helpful for me. And then the last habit that I have is I run at least 3 times a week. And running for me has become, it's funny, it's like a combination of all these things I've just listed, but running also seems so healing. I'm not a natural runner, and I've had to work up. I'm up to about 3 miles each time I go, but I've really had to work hard to get there because it's just, for some reason, it's not easy for me. It's still hard for me. I've been doing it now, for 3 or 4 years, but it does, it clears my mind. I get so many ideas when I run. So I think the combination of all of these have really changed my outlook and my perspective on life.
Yeah, it is never just one thing that really is going to change your life. All those things that you listed are amazing, and those are the actions that have been instrumental in me finding myself and learning how to enjoy each day rather than I used to have this mindset of, oh, I really can't be happy until I have my $1 million or until I have those materialistic goods that were kind of imprinted into me in high school, the perfect relationship and the car and all of that stuff. But those habits that you listed, I really, they're so helpful, and I urge everyone to, you don't need to tackle them all at once, but just get into one of them at a time, because they really bring you the clarity of thoughts. And when you understand what you want and how the actions that it requires for you to get to the place that you desire to be at, it is such a powerful tool when you implement routines and habits like this. That, how you said, we can't control all of our thoughts, but when we at least can monitor most of them and get that clarity, it allows us to just almost compound everything in our lives. And the gratitude, the Think and Grow Rich, I haven't finished Think and Grow Rich, but the reading in general is amazing, because what you consume is almost what you put out, and it's really a choice. If you want to go and scroll through TikTok and use your brain in a mindless manner, that's kind of what you're going to get. But when you read books and meditate and work out or run or go on hikes, just the act of clearing out any sort of pessimistic outlook and replacing that with constructive actual benefits for your health, your mind, your money situation. I'm really impressed with everything that you listed. It seems, I don't want to say it seems simple, because all these things are quite challenging and it just takes time. Nothing great is going to happen overnight. But it's impressive that you were able to build up the 3 miles per run, because running is such a long-term task, and you really have to figure out how to enjoy it rather than view running as something that you have to get done. When my longest run I ever did was 13 miles, and oh my gosh, I really want to break that record, but it's something that is going to require a lot of discipline because I haven't ran in months and months since I did that. And I do like to do a lot of cycling, but really, I don't want to get on too much of a rant. It's very powerful that whatever you choose, whatever outlet there is, that we all need to have an outlet to clear our minds. And whether it's meditation, reading, writing, having a blog, all of those things are just going to bring you clarity. And with clarity, everything gets easier. You figure out where you want to go, who you want to be, and you make decisions that are critical to get you to the next step.
Agreed. Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. And like you said, this was not, I didn't just flip the switch and just wake up and start creating these habits. I started gratitude, for example, first. I think that was one of the first ones, or actually running was probably first, and then gratitude. And then it took some time, I think I did those two for a while. And then eventually I found a couple approaches for affirmations, which I've changed up. I've only done affirmations for about a year. And then meditation, I've only done that for about, I think, 6 to 8 months. So like you said, it's not like you flip a switch one day and just start doing all of these, because that would probably be overwhelming. But just incorporating something new into your day that like you said, gives you clarity, opens up your mind a little bit. It just you feel much better throughout your days.
I think probably the easiest one to implement that everyone should start with is the gratitude, because we just overlook the simple things. I've been really appreciating, for example, outside of my office window, there's these two cardinals and they're making a bird nest. And I'm just fascinated in how they continue to progress. And that's something that I'm grateful for. And I like how you mentioned looking for unique items, something I do when I go and walk my dogs. I try to find the unique things. Often I'm going on the same walk right up and down my street, but to look for things out of the normal and actually appreciate them, it's just, the mindset is such a big aspect to how you feel. And I like the idea you'll never have access to another person's state of mind. And it's so amazingly powerful when you actually put in the work and effort to shift your mind to a more enlightened state. So, for example, I'm very impressed that you've crossed the $1 million mark. I'm not anywhere close to that. But my mindset, I understand how compounding works, and I'm 23. I don't make a lot of money, but I am trading the stock market in the morning. I'm building this podcast business, and then I do have a job where I'm an employee. So although I'm not making so much right now, it's important to have the proper mindset. And I know with time and patience, all of these aspects that I'm doing will compound. And it's really priceless what you do for yourself, because no one else is going to be able to do what you need to do for yourself. When we shift towards the affirmations, the gratitude, and the meditations, it's really, you can't put a price tag on these things, along with health. So I love working out and running, biking, cycling. Those things are quite underrated. If you don't have your health, the work, the job, the money means nothing. So we really have to understand the power of balance and taking care of our minds just as much as the materialism.
Agreed.
So I think we really talked a lot about that. We got some good points out. What would you tell the 16-year-old Corey?
That's a good question. I think the thing that I wish I had known, or I would tell my younger self, is, stuff, and I think we've already talked about this, by the way, stuff doesn't make you happy. It doesn't make you successful. So fancy cars, big houses, clothes, furniture, whatever it is, that stuff does not make you happy. And it also doesn't make you successful. I think when I was younger, I kind of associated because I felt like I felt, I don't know, I felt like I didn't have as much as the people around me. But so for some reason, that's what I associated happiness and success with. And I think that probably is why I, went on had my amazingly bad money behaviors. But, I mean, it takes experiences and it takes lessons over life to know that, happiness isn't a point in time. It's not a purchase. It's really nothing external. It really goes back to the last question actually about, what are routines and habits that make you grounded? It really is internal. So your happiness and how you feel, if you feel successful, it's all about how you feel inside. So, I mean, that's something that I wish I had known earlier, sooner, but I'm really happy. At least I know it now, and that's what matters. But that's probably the lesson I would tell my prior self.
And that's really good how it's better late than never. You really, everyone has their own pace, and it's so important. It breaks my heart when I see people who are 50, 60, or just older people that are not taking care of their health, because not that I'm judging them. I really think I know we're all from the same source and we're all equal, but I know when someone isn't taking care of their health that their mindset is almost 99% of the time not proper, not structured, and they don't do the healthy actions like meditation or even if you're not running 3 miles like you do, at least I don't even see them going for walks. And it, like we talked about before, it's not healthy to compare yourself to others, but it's so important for each individual to at least begin taking steps to better themselves. And I love the point of the extravagant furniture, the car. It's not going to make you happy. It might bring you a sense of joy for a couple of days, but eventually your ego is... There's a big difference between our true self and our ego. And that's a big point that I don't see too many young people focusing on. And I can only talk about this because I had a big ego as a high schooler. And once you can disassociate from your ego, everything becomes much enjoyable, and it's yet again priceless. The materialistic things are amazing, but there's a lot of things that no one else can do for you that we just have to do for ourselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. That ego point is a very true point. I mean, I have friends and they're my age, and it's getting, we're not real close to retirement, but we're probably halfway through our careers. And I just want to tell them all the time that they're, not that I'm judging them, but they're still into brands and they're still into like their image. And I just want to like convey to them that there's so many other things that are more important than that. So, and I'm going to talk, I think, later about some of my diet habits, but and basically they make fun of me, for how I eat, because I do kind of eat on the healthy side. So it's funny. I wish, like you said, there was a way to get through to some of these people. And they're people that I love and I want them to be the best version of them. But if someone doesn't want to change, they're definitely not going to change.
I love the point. It's so hard to get through to people who really don't want to change. You can't, almost. And I persistently try to help people in my family, my friends, and it's the same situation that you're speaking on. If they don't want to make the shifts themselves, then I guess that's okay. But some part of me feels inclined to to at least speak about it, because I'm really big on the healthy diet as well, and we might have different views on healthy. I'm interested to hear about your diet, but there's a big difference between if you're eating and consuming seed oils and Wendy's and these things that literally they dampen your capacity to think. And it's not only that you might have a little more body fat percentage and exterior physical aesthetic things, but it destroys your capacity to think. And they might be high performers still in their work life, but I don't know if someone with a poor diet is really getting to that enlightened state of joy, because they're still looking for external validation with their ego and the purchases and the cars, all that materialistic stuff. Like you said, that is not what's going to bring you long-term sustainable joy. And I feel inclined to help people realize that as soon as possible in their lives, because it's a painful state when you, I mean, I haven't had the $1 million, the all that stuff, but I know there's people out there, because I've seen it in the media. There are rappers who have millions and millions of dollars, but they pass away because they're addicted to Xanax, and Xanax is directly just helping them run from reality. And so you have millions of dollars, but then you overdose on a drug that's helping you run from reality. So what is going on there?
Yeah, completely agree. I like the point that you said about how you can't think clearly when your diet is made up of sugars and excuse me, and processed foods. It does something to your brain, and a lot of the medications that we're on, they really completely. Sorry, I'm choking up here.
No
They
problem.
the medications that we're on, the chemicals that we consume, they change how we think, and they change our levels of emotions. And that was one thing I was going to get into. There was a period in my life when, I think actually at the beginning we may have talked about when I was in, roughly 260,000 of debt. And at that time I was very stressed. I was working full time, and then I was also getting a degree at night. So my life was pretty busy and pretty stressful. And through that period, I started getting migraines, and then those migraines would not let up. So I had the migraines from my mid-20s to maybe my mid-30s. And then I decided to do something about it. So I got on some medication, which kind of helped. But then just a few years ago, it's funny, it coincided with some of these other habits in my life. But about 3 years ago, these migraines they were literally controlling my life. Like sometimes I would have to miss work because I was stuck at home in bed, and I don't really like to waste time at all. So plus I was in pain, so this was not fun for me. But one day I just kind of I just looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, what is going on with me? Like, why are these happening to me? And so I decided that day that I was going to figure these things out. So I read every book I could about migraine prevention, from like the diets to the hormones to some herbal type remedies. So I literally any book I could find on the topic I read. And so over the last 3 years, I've made a ton of diet changes. I agree. We may not agree on all of these, but I think we'll agree on some of the points. So first of all, and by the way, these are going to sound really dramatic, especially to a person who hasn't thought about changing your diet. But remember, this happened over 3 years. I was not, I didn't just wake up and say, today I'm going to give up all these things. Like this was a 3-year period. The first thing I gave up was caffeine, and I actually failed the first time. So I gave it up for a month, and then I just felt like I needed it. So I got back on that. And then about 6 months later, I actually gave it up for good. So I haven't had caffeine for probably 2 or 3 years. I completely reduced the sugar in my diet. So I don't really have candy bars anymore. I gave up gluten, and I stopped taking all of my medication. The crazy thing I never realized how powerful medication can be, but I was taking this daily pill for the migraine, and at one point it wasn't working very well. So my doctor switched me to another pill, and my emotions, I couldn't control my emotions on this other pill. So then I went back to the old one, and I just thought, wow, this medication really is messing with my brain. So the goal was also to get off that, which I got off a few years ago. And then I really just eat whole, unprocessed food. So a lot of veggies, a lot of fruits, a lot of beans. And I know this really sounds dramatic, but for me, I mean, Justin, like you said, my brain thinks so much more clearly. I feel so much more creative now. I have more ideas. I think I can appreciate life a lot better. I feel just my whole view and my outlook is so much different. I feel like I can take more risk, like educated risk. So this whole change in diet has come with these other habits of mine, and it's really been like a really transforming process for me. So yeah, that's my dramatic change.
I'm a big fan of about everything that you listed. The point that I want to start with is I feel, and although some of the listeners might not agree with this, you have to understand that the big pharma, if they cure customers, it's a customer loss. So when they give out these pills, but like you said, one pill led to another pill, and there's never really a solution because each pill has a billion side effects. And I don't watch TV a lot. I know it's important to limit what you consume, and that's why I don't watch a lot of TV. But back in the day, I remember seeing these commercials where at the end they would spew off a million side effects in like 5 times speed, and all these little fine print things. It's overlooked, and I'm so glad that you figured out how by reducing your diet to what you really need and just overall having the awareness. Now you probably don't suffer from migraines, and the caffeine is a big thing that I notice with myself as well. Like, here's this thing: if everyone's doing something, I kind of veer away from it, and that's not to judge others, to say that I'm right and you're wrong, but there's just what mainstream puts out in general. They don't want strong people because strong people are much harder to be controlled. So, and this is just what I've learned from my personal experience, and the caffeine for me, it does no good for me. At first, I got away from using it immediately when I woke up, and I said, okay, that's a step. But then I started having coffee like 3 hours after I woke, and then I just still noticed. At first, I thought it was my stock market trading that was getting my emotions going up. But then I realized, wait, that's not it. It's the caffeine that is making my heart pump crazy and making my emotions flutter. The caffeine really is something I'm trying to help my family get off of. And here's a really good principle for any listeners. If you want to change something, you cannot say, I'm not going to do this anymore. You're much better off replacing it with something. So instead of drinking coffee every morning, I switched to green tea. And honey is amazing. So I know you mentioned fruit, and there's a difference between a Hershey's chocolate bar or a Snickers and having a bunch of glucose from strawberries or bananas. That's a big difference. And I'm not acting like sugar isn't good, but we need to consume the natural things. Get your protein from real meats and things like that rather than protein shakes. And I do still enjoy a protein shake, but I'm just speaking in a majority aspect. Rather than having most of your sugar from chocolate bars, enjoy the fruits, because fruit is amazing. Honey is amazing. You can still have good treats, just natural good treats rather than processed stuff. And I really don't want to rant on how bad the ingredients are in almost 99% of what's in the grocery stores, but oh my gosh, the cancer is a business, and they put these crazy ingredients to lower testosterone, to alter people's hormones in things like granola bars. They say whole grains are amazing for you, but then you look at the back, you read the nutrition label, and you can't pronounce half of the stuff on the label. It's like, I have this rule: if you can't really pronounce something, how about don't put it in your body? But it all comes with a realization. Like we said before, nothing great is going to happen overnight. So by reducing your diet and altering things, you gain mental clarity, and nothing occurs quickly. We have to be patient with this stuff, and trial and error is one of the best tips I would give anyone. Just continue to see what works and what doesn't work. We're all going to be different. Maybe you can have caffeine and it doesn't mess with your emotions and make your heart flutter. But for me, I'm not a fan of caffeine.
Yeah, completely. I totally agree. Most of the, like you said, the ingredients on the packages, if you can't read them or don't understand them, it's probably is a bad thing. One of the books I read, they asked the question, would your great grandfather or mother, would they actually recognize any of the foods that you eat now? And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, they would probably not recognize most. They probably didn't know what a candy bar is, or a frozen pizza, or whatever it happens to be. They wouldn't recognize this as food. They so that's actually, that question for some reason stuck in my mind. I don't even know which book it was from, but it the fact that I also see diets as our medicine, or food as medicine. So when you're eating whole foods that can be grown or not processed. For example, if you buy a package, it could be in a package, but if there's only one ingredient on it, it's probably okay. But all of those foods, they can really heal you. Like you said, cancer is a business, which is horrible. But I wish more people could see how powerful the whole foods diet could be, and how healing it could be. I've heard so many stories of even people who are older. They come in, they can barely walk, and then all of a sudden they change their diet to this more whole foods type diet, and almost all of their symptoms go away in 6 months to a year. So I definitely think that food is our medicine. We just have to understand it and use it in that way. And I don't think we use it this way. I think you're right. There's too many big industries within medicine and other food type things. So it's really sad. It's sad, really, overall.
That's the perfect word for it, and I wish it wasn't sad. I think part of our purpose is to help individuals recognize that, hey, if it has more than 5 ingredients, really, that's not something our grandparents or our natives would recommend or even understand what the heck it is. It's powerful when we realize really, or what we consume is who we are. And if you consume those things that you can't pronounce, or if you have a granola bar that has 50 ingredients in it, that is just not going to help you. Maybe it helps you for 30 minutes, but we have to have a big picture view of life and understand that each day it really matters. Every action, every thought, every minute, how we carry ourselves. These things are instrumental to who we become and what we produce in our entire lives. So it's hard to make people realize that what they're used to doing is maybe not the best route, but I don't know any other mission that is more worthwhile, for me at least. It's powerful when my purpose is to empower other humans and try to allow them to think clearer and find that long sustainable happiness, rather than what people do often is they indulge, whether it's cigarettes or alcohol or food or TV, Netflix. Indulging in general is not going to help you as a human. We should be able to be balanced in life and become resilient humans rather than people who depend on all these the abundance. Because to be honest, this goes into the next question I wanted to ask: solutions for people who lack meaning. And so many people who back in the day, when they're hunter and gathering, 15-year-olds, 20-year-olds would have meaning, because you have to protect whether if you're a man, you have to go hunt and bring home food. And if you're a girl, I know for a fact they had specific purposes in the hunting and gathering tribes. But now we have an abundance of everything that is so easy that young children are lacking purpose. And this question, how do we help people find meaning? It's a hard question, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it is a really hard question. I, yeah, I don't know if there's one answer, but I'll give my opinion. I actually kind of went through a phase where I went through actually a couple phases where I think I did lack some meaning in my life. Like I didn't really know what my purpose was, or my ultimate goal. And I think I was crippled by the fact of, my stress. Again, when I was on the medication, I kind of was at a point where I was letting fear dictate my life instead of like just living my life. And like I said, I think it was driven by some stress, medication, not doing these habits. So this is more than 3 years ago. And this was actually probably right before maybe 3 years. So maybe it was 3.5 years ago. But I kind of just had a little talk with myself, and I had become so paranoid for some reason. And like, I just worried about everything, which, things that I shouldn't have been worried about. And one day actually, I thought about my past self, and I was actually as a teenager and even in my early 20s, I was a pretty fun-loving person. And especially in high school, like everyone seemed to want to be around me. And I thought, why, like, what has changed? Why am I so paranoid and worried about everything now? Like, what's different? And I think, and this was again the initial changes that kind of spurred my motivation to change my diet. I think getting off the medication. So if anyone's listening that's on a lot of medications, there's some that you don't want to just stop, obviously, but there's some that you may be able to stop if you make some changes to your diet. And you may not think that this has anything to do with your meaning, but the thing is, when you clean up your diet and you start exercising and you create some of these habits, like gratitude, for example, you don't have to do these all at once. But if you just start making these little changes each day, your mind will be clearer, and you'll start to actually understand that there's more purpose to your life. I think, kind of like you said, Justin, where sometimes people are just not on purpose, but sometimes they're almost like robots. They go with the trend and they don't actually think for themselves. And I think, and part of that is kind of how we're raised. We're all raised with these different beliefs from our family, our parents, our aunts, uncles, whoever raised us. And we get those beliefs so deep in our minds that it's those beliefs almost act like concrete inside our heads, and they don't want to change. So we don't want to change. But I think when you kind of open up and you make some of these changes, you don't have to make all of them. You just start really, really small. I think making some of those changes actually gives you a little more clarity and allows you to see your life as a gift versus kind of just something you have to get through. So I think just making, the healthy changes to really open up your eyes, I guess that's probably not the right way to say it, but
I
that
think
allows you.
I think that's a great way to wrap up that point. A lot of people have their vision clouded, and it's like if you're searching through something in the fog, you're not going to find it. And if you clear that fog, sure, the ditches and the ruts and the holes, the knives, they all still might be there. But if you can see them, you can avoid them. And it's so important, and it seems just cliche how we advise people to work on their diet and remove pharmaceuticals, but these are really things that block your clarity, and without clarity you don't understand what is worth living for. Like, just a year ago or even 6 months ago, I was not nearly as driven to try and help other people and spread a positive message. But once I got a little bit clear on just my bigger picture and what this world is turning into, with, like you said, society's just raised us in a certain way where whatever it is, how your family or how the school systems are, there are expectations, and we should realize that our gut feeling, our intuition, is so much more important than what others expect. And this brings me back to a thought I had while you were speaking, that maybe the worrying and the paranoia, because I know for sure I had those feelings, and it came from me trying to please other people and valuing others' opinions over my own opinions. And it's so hard when you don't know anything but that. But this is the power in trying to educate people that they are individuals, and you don't need to be a pawn for someone else, whether it's in high school or college or your boss. You have the power to be an individual, and until you get clarity of mind, it's almost impossible to realize that. So to start, the solutions are to work on the gratitude, to go for a daily walk, and maybe after you fix your diet a bit, change that to running half a mile. And nothing great happens overnight, so maybe half a mile, you get good at that, shift that to 1 mile. And over time, your life's going to improve. Your perspective of everything will be much more sustainable, and you'll find joy in the simplest things that before your foggy vision was cleared, you would have never expected any joy to be derived from.
Yes, I totally agree.
And worrying about what's out of our control, that's something that really plagued me for a while. And now it's still a challenge, but really think about, what can you control? Your actions, your thoughts, how you treat other people. And if you just be mindful of those things, I think you talked about this earlier in the conversation, how once you started working on your health and other aspects, suddenly you got a raise, or you got, what's the word? You got promoted at work. It's funny how when you change one part of your living, that it all kind of snowballs into other areas.
That's so true. Based on my experience, our life, you may look at your life in solos. Like, for example, you may have a family arm, you might have a money arm or a health arm or an exercise, whatever it is. We all have these different, sorry, I meant silos. We all have these different silos in our life. But when you actually think about it, our life is just kind of one messy, chunk after another. Our money runs over into our health, and our mindset runs into everything, from our relationships to our spirituality to our, and whatever it is, to our kids' life, whatever is that silo, it runs into all courses of our lives. So like you said, yeah, promotion could actually be because maybe you just started exercising, you started feeling better, so you started performing better at work. It's funny how we have a domino effect, and it can go both ways. That's the fun thing and the scary thing. So if you're in an upward trajectory, the domino effect is awesome. But if you're kind of sliding, then it's going to work against you. And life really is ups and downs. You're never going to always be up or always be down. But like you said, just controlling what you can control and not worrying about everything else out there really allows you to focus on what's important in your life, and allows you to to hopefully win more dominoes. Have more wins in your life.
I I couldn't have put that any better. It's crazy how compounding works. And speaking like this conversation, we just ran through so many healthy habits, routines, mindsets, and perspectives that hopefully can domino effect into anyone who's listening. And this was great. I really enjoy your time, and just after speaking for a while, my voice, my lungs, I am tired. I don't know if you feel the same, but this was so good, and I know that people are just learning, and they will, if you can take away one thing, just let it be the gratitude. Start and look for the unique things that are usually overlooked, whether it's the birds, or hey, the sun's out today, cheers to that. Or when nighttime's coming, is there a nice sunset? Like, there are just so many things that we have to be grateful for. But Corey, I really appreciate your time and your willingness to share your life experience, because I know through speaking and being honest about what we've gone through, it does nothing but help other people.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justin, for having me. It's been really nice to talk to you.